Hey, Frank. Thanks for being here. Hey, Chris. Good to see you. Hey, Nacho. Hey, Mons. Hey, Telecaster Remaster. Caleb. Man, good crew here today. That's cool. Hey, Paul from St. Paul. I just played in Minneapolis at the Ice House a few weeks ago. Were you at that show, Paul? Awesome. Cool. Well, good to see you again. Thank you. That was a really fun show. I'm just kind of warming up, I'll be honest. I took a nap. It just felt really good. So I'm just getting my fingers moving again. What's on anyone's mind? These are office hours. Sometimes I have some kind of a plan. Some kind of a plan in mind, and sometimes I don't. Today, I don't have a plan, so I'm glad to go anywhere you guys want to go. And I'll just keep noodling in the meantime. Yeah, that's true. I do have a gig with Tim Lurch this month. Yeah, I'll put a link to that here if people want to check it out. If anybody happens to be in Tacoma or Seattle or any place within driving distance of Tacoma, you can drop by. It's only the second time I've played with, it'll be the second time for me to play in, a show with Tim. A couple of years ago, my trio was on tour from New York, and we played a show in Tacoma, and Tim was a special guest. And then about 6 months ago, I was in Tacoma on my own, and I dropped by Tim's house, and we did a live stream together and did some playing. And that's really how the idea for this concert came about. We were just trying to find more ways that the two of us could play together. And we're going to do some recording while I'm there too. I hope we'll get a record out of it. That's the big idea, to make a record together. But if you live around there, Rodney or anybody else, come on by. Any questions? Anybody have a question? Oh, wow, that's really specific. Hey, Julio Fausto from Berlin. Cool. Mon says, I was once advised by a well-respected professional musician and teacher to stay away from the high E string while accompanying singers. The context was a jazz setting with a female vocalist, although I'm pretty sure he felt the advice would apply across styles and playing situations. Any comments? What would you consider best advice on staying out of a singer's way, both as regards to register and things like sound, timbre, volume, voicings, etc.? That's a good question. So I don't have a rule about staying off the high E string, although that makes sense to me. I've never thought of it quite that way, but a lot of the stuff that I would think about would probably end up being that would be the result of choices that I would make. But I wouldn't necessarily arrive there just simply by saying avoid the high E string, although that makes sense to me. If you're playing in a jazz duo with a female singer and playing standards, I would use shell chords mostly. Shell chords are stuff like root 3 7 or root 3 6. So if the chord was A major 7, I might use this or this. Or if the chord was A minor 7, I might use this. A dominant 7, I might use this. So you can see I'm not putting anything, I'm not even touching the B string a lot of the time in that kind of situation. I would stay mostly on these bottom strings and play shell voicings, and even sometimes just spread triads. If the chord symbol said A major 7, I might still just play like an A spread triad. That's an A spread triad. A minor, A dominant would just be major. So just playing in the bottom part of the chord because they're going to be in the upper part of the chord. Uh, Both in terms of the register, the frequencies, and if you want to stay out of this range with your chords, but also sometimes, maybe depending on the song, they might sing a note that's the 9 or the 6 or the 5. So, you could stay away from all of that stuff in terms of register and function. So, yeah, for sure. Uh, that's where I would start with shell chords. And I wouldn't add too many surprise passing chords at first, like if it's a singer that you don't know very well. But as you get to know them, you start to know, oh, yeah, I can take some chances here and there. And if you're just using shell chords, then even if you add some passing chords or substitutions, probably it's not going to matter. It's not going to make it hard for them to sing. Basically, you're just trying to make it easy for them to sing. So I would also make the rhythm really clear. Like you might be into fancy rhythmic studies, but if it's just you and a singer, then you really have to, you know, take care of the time even more than the harmony. That's what I would say. Mm. Okay, that's a little bit about that. Uh, Krenner is from Innsbruck, Austria. Cool. I don't think I've been there. That's cool. Is there a cool music scene there? Are there clubs? Do you get out and play? Are you working on the scene there? What's it like? Tell us. Chris Halverson says, question, thoughts on creating new melodies based on standards. Is that a no-no? No longer considered a standard? I know there are no rules with music, but thoughts? Oh, Chris, I would say that's quite the opposite of a no-no. I think that's a great use of like musical practice time, study time to take a familiar standard and write a brand new melody to that. Um, I mean, geez, Thelonious Monk did that. His song, there's a song by Thelonious Monk called Evidence that was based on a really familiar tune at the time called Just You, Just Me. Charlie Parker, maybe his most famous tune is called Donna Lee, and that was based on a popular tune of the day called Indiana or Back Home in Indiana. There's many, many tunes in the jazz canon that are based on a song called I Got Rhythm, originally written by George Gershwin, and so on. Yeah, so that's not a no-no. It does make it no longer a standard, but like for in your case, if you're playing like solo guitar gigs, like I know that you do, that would be totally fine. If you're playing with other people at a jam session or something, then yeah, you might have to call tunes that people know, especially if it's a situation where there's not charts going around. You're just, sitting around and calling tunes that will be familiar to the other musicians. But if you're doing your own gig or leading your own band, I think that's great. I did a little thing about that. Let me see. I'm looking it up. So you can check it out. Yeah, this was, I did a little lesson about this last month when I did this series about writing tunes in 15 minutes. So yeah, I think that's great to try to find a new melody that goes over a familiar chord progression to, things like All the Things You Are or Autumn Leaves or anything like that. It doesn't have to be one of those tunes, but you could start there. You could write a new melody over any tune that you like. And still, when you take a solo, you're still dealing with the same harmonies, unless you tweak the harmony a little bit in your own writing. Yeah, I would encourage that very much, Chris. Let's see. Garrett Kinsley said, I'm always so impressed by the sound you get out of that Waterloo. It suits your playing so well. Thanks. I love this guitar. I got it in 2017, I think. And I've used it a bunch on recordings and playing live. It's got a pickup in it, a K and K pickup. And it's a great guitar. Just 12 frets, which I like. If you ever hear a record that I made called Accidental Courage, this is the main guitar that I played all over that record. On almost every song, I'm playing this guitar. I played electric maybe on one or two songs, but this is the guitar that I used for most of the recording. Maybe the low E, says Telecaster Remaster. Maybe I missed something. I'm not sure what you mean exactly. Tell me, please. Krenner says the music scene isn't huge around here, but there's definitely venues that are worth playing. In Innsbruck, Tribe House is a fantastic venue. Vienna, however, is amazing in terms of music. Yeah, I've been to Vienna a few times over the years. I think, yeah, usually I play Porgy and Bess there, and I always enjoy being in Vienna for a few days. It's a beautiful town. Drew Holmes says, love your book. Thanks for writing it. Thank you so much. If you don't know that book, I wrote a book. I assume the book Drew is talking about is it's called String Theories. You can see it's in the frame behind me. If you don't know it, I'll put a link here. People can check it out. This is the book. Putting a lot of links in the chat today. I don't know why. That seems like a fun thing to do. I don't have an assistant who's doing that stuff. I don't know if anybody wants to do that kind of thing. If anybody wants to be a moderator for one of these things in the future, let me know. I've never had a moderator. It's always just me here. Oh man, I would love to play with Adam Miller. Well, anywhere really, but Tribe House would be great. Has he played there? Has Adam Miller come by and played there on his own? Maybe he and I can do some kind of tour next year. We've played live together a handful of times, but never touring. I played with him in his hometown a couple of times in Newcastle, Australia, and a couple of times in Los Angeles and New York. And we did some music together at the Fretboard Summit last year. That was really fun. Or 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. Oh, Misty. Chris Halverson is saying writing a new melody on Misty. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that right now, just because why not? So let's see if I can write a new melody on Misty. Uh, uh, I mean, I would, if I was smart, I would have recorded that on my, iPhone or whatever, and then transcribed it and then refined it. I think that's maybe a nicer way to write is not with your pencil in hand all the time, but just let your mind wander and record it, and then listen back, and then refine it. But try to just capture an idea, a simple idea, as it's happening, not writing one note after the other. That can, I mean, I do that too, but it just feels like a different process. Okay. uh oh, Schofield came through, Innsbruck. Cool. Wow. I've He's one of the greatest. So to get to see him in your hometown is very special. Uh, Julio Fausto says, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. I don't know if it's Julio or Julio, but I'll answer your question regardless. I'm still learning how to play jazz. I was wondering if there's a right way of learning it as a student. I don't know if there's one right way, but I would say just be cautious. Some teachers, including me, over the years, might say, "Oh, you want to learn jazz? Here, go learn all these scales, learn all these chord voicings, and then after you learn all this stuff, then maybe you'll be ready to play some jazz." And I would say, you know, learn some tunes, like Misty, for example, is one that I just played. Uh, there's tunes that everybody starts out with, tunes like Blue Bossa, Misty, Autumn Leaves, All the Things You Are, and learn to play those tunes however you can. If you can read music, then get a book that has the melody and learn to learn to play it. Um, this is All the Things You Are. And I'm adding some chords to it, but really when I say learn tunes, what I mean is learn the melody, and then learn the chords in whatever most basic way you can. Don't start with anything terribly fancy. um, and over time, really, like, you want to build on tunes. I think more than just like, if you learn your chord vocabulary will increase as you learn tunes. Your melodic vocabulary will increase as you learn tunes. And then later on, when you want to take a solo, soloing should really be about using the original melody as a launching point, using the original chords as a launching point, and not so much about what scales to play over what chords. We all get into some of that, and there's value in it, but I think it misses the essence of what jazz music is if you start with scales and theory. Um, so learn some music and study theory if you want to, but don't let the theory be your leading thing. Like, let the music lead you, and theory can just be a way of trying to understand what the music is. And then, try to play along with records, which again, I would start simple. Don't try to play along with a Kurt Rosenwinkel record right off the bat. Maybe start with a Billie Holiday record or something like that, where you might have a good chance of figuring out what's going on, and you could play along. Or um, maybe find another record by a singer, like June Christie made some nice records with Barney Kessel on guitar. Or sorry, not June Christie, Julie London. I take it back. I mean, June Christie is also a great singer, but find some records with Julie London singing and Barney Kessel playing guitar, and see if you can figure some of that out. Barney Kessel is a great guitarist to study when you're first starting out with jazz. Everything he plays is really tasteful, and some of it's hard to play, but a lot of it I think you could figure out. Okay. Uh, let's see. Guitar Ruchi says hello from Pittsburgh. Hey Pittsburgh. As a guitarist, how would you prepare for a duo jazz gig with a bassist? Um, well, I would pick tunes to play before the gig, so that you're not sitting. I mean, this is true regardless of what the setting is, but it's cool to have some tunes picked out so you're not sitting on the bandstand looking at each other like, I don't know, what do you want to play? What do you want to play? So that's boring. So pick some tunes in advance, and then once you've agreed on some tunes that you both want to play, make sure that you know how to play the melody, whatever tune it is. And once you can play the melody, make sure that you're not playing a bunch of chords down here that are going to get in the bass player's way. Just try playing the melody. So that's Misty. And if you want to add a note, do something in this middle register. So I'm trying to stay out of any part of the range that the bass player would be in. That's something. I would also work on chords in higher voicing. So when the bass player plays a solo, you're not playing these kind of big warm chords. Again, that would be in the way, but maybe play up here. Ah. So stay off of the bottom strings and learn some chord voicings that are higher up. Make sure your time is really good, because it would be very tempting to just let the bass player be taking care of the time all the time, and you could just float on top. But make sure that your time is good. So that means working with the metronome and, uh, just making sure that when they're soloing, you can keep the time and that everything you play feels really good. There's an exercise that I learned out of a Mick Goodrick book where he says, record yourself playing a tune where you play 8 bars of walking bass. Walking bass for Misty right now. So this is the first 8 bars. And then the next 8 bars you would solo. And the next 8 bars you'd be back to walking again. As a variation on this, instead of walking, you could just play chords. So this is the bridge to Misty. 2, 3, 4. Going back to soloing. And so I've just gone through the whole tune once. You could do it 3 or 4 times with a metronome or some kind of drum thing going. And then you go back and you take this thing that you've recorded where you're alternating either walking bass and soloing or chords and soloing. And then you switch parts. So when the recorded version of you is playing chords, you solo. When the recorded version of you is soloing, you play chords, and so on. And that, I think, is good training for playing duo with anybody, whether you're going to play with a bassist or another guitarist or a singer or anything. I think that's a really good exercise. John Hussein says, greetings from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I really enjoy your playing and teaching advice. Thank you. Much appreciated. Well, thank you, John. That's really nice to hear. Thank you. Oh man, I got to keep up here. A lot of messages. Garrett nicely says, been digging Brad Meldau lately, adapting some of his Elliott Smith arrangements back to guitar. Any advice on playing piano voicings without it getting too busy, for lack of a better term? Ooh, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to try to play piano voicings literally. Like, sometimes I'll transcribe them to try to learn from them, to try to learn something about piano voicings. But if you try to play piano stuff too literally, I feel like, yeah, it can get cluttery. So I wouldn't try to do that, but I might just try to get the essence of what piano players are doing, which, I mean, there's a lot of things that piano players are doing, some of which we couldn't do even if we tried. But 2 things that I've learned from piano players regarding voicings is like taking a triad and adding one note that doesn't really belong. So if this is a B flat triad, I might add this C note on this string, or if it's a, I guess that's doubling the notes. So there's no point to do that, but or I could add an A down here, or I could add a G here. Or I could add an E below it, or some combination of those things. So instead of just straight B flat, I might substitute 7 for 1 and 6 for 5. So there's lots of stuff you could do with a basic triad by just kind of pulling on it. And I'm still thinking of it as, having to do with this triad shape, but adding some other note that's not typically part of the shape. So that's something that piano players will do. I think that's fair game for guitar. Another thing that they'll do is sometimes, if it's dominant type of chords especially, they'll put the third and the 7 on the bottom. Like if you're thinking A7, they might put the third and the 7 on the bottom and then play either a very, easygoing triad on top, just A triad on top, or something slightly more colorful. So now I'm playing F sharp minor on top of that. Or for even more color, you could play an F sharp major on top of that. And that's all some kind of A7, but we're not playing a low A. The lowest sound in our voicing is the third and 7. And we're just adding stuff on top. I can't actually play all 5 of these notes, but hopefully you get the idea. If I put it up here, then I can. So that's C sharp and G, and then the F sharp triad on top, which gives us the third, the 13, and the flat 9. So A7, 13, flat 9. Instead of playing it with A on the bottom, you would play with the third and 7, and then this triad on top, or F major on top, which gives you sharp 9 and sharp 5, or sharp 9 and flat 13. So that's the real root, but we're doing it like this way. Or if I move higher up, I could play the 7 and the 3 here, and then again I could put triads on top. So maybe I'll put an E flat triad up top. So that's an A7 kind of sound, but the upper triad is E flat. So I'm playing G, B flat, E flat. So against A, that's flat 9 and flat 5. Or I could put an F triad above that. Or a C triad. Any number of things. And so that's something that piano players do. You can see by me doing it, it's mechanically it's a lot. So if you want to get those sounds in your playing, you have to practice them a lot so that they become something you can do without even thinking. If it's something that's going to cause you any hesitation on the bandstand, don't play it. When it's time to play the stuff that you can get to immediately, not the stuff that you're almost there with. So if you like those sounds, great, but be prepared to practice them ad infinitum so that they're just always there for you. A good book to study that kind of stuff would be, there's a piano book by Mark Levine that's called the Jazz Piano Book, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. There's a guitar book called Mel Bay's Complete Book of Harmony Theory and Voicing, or Voice Leading, I can't remember, by Brett Wilmot, that's got a lot of those concepts in it about stacking, a chord on top of another chord to make a big, rich chord sound. So that's a guitar book about that stuff. There's also a book by Mick Goodrick and Tim Miller that I forget what it's called, but I think it's the only book that they collaborated on, and it has to do with chord voicings, and there's a lot of that kind of material in there that I think is sort of a pianistic approach to jazz chord voicings. Um, okay. Hey, Sandra, good to see you here. Are you going to be there in week 4? I'll be there in week 4. Oh, David Deweese is here. There's no late. There's just get here when you get here. That's cool. Oh, Paul from St. Paul says, John Harrington's arrangement and some of the chords seem impossible to me. Should I abandon that chord if it's just not happening for me, or is the pain worth the gain? Yeah, if you're trying to work through John Harrington's arrangements and it's just feels impossible, then yeah, I'd put it away for a little while and maybe come back to it in a year. Like literally put a note in your calendar to dust off that book a year from now. And if you keep studying jazz chords between now and then, I bet you some of those chords will seem more familiar and less of a stretch, either in the actual stretchiness or just conceptually. You'll be like, oh, I see why that chord makes sense there. I mean, that was my experience when I was young. I bought this book of solo guitar transcriptions of some Joe Pass arrangements, and I thought they were impossible to read. First of all, to read a chord voicing with no tablature, just 5 notes and 4 notes and sometimes 6 notes occasionally. But I went back to that book many years later, and like I knew all of those chords. They weren't weird chord voicings, especially in the case of Joe Pass. I mean, he's really inventive in terms of how he reharmonizes things and does chord substitution and stuff. But the actual grips that Joe Pass uses are fairly common. I think with John Harrington, he's doing some things that are less common. And so, yeah, if they're just really impossible, put them aside and maybe, get the Mickey Baker, I forget what it's called, but there's a chord book, a jazz guitar chord book by Mickey Baker. You could learn those chord voicings. There's a book by Andrew York, who's a really interesting guitar player that bridges classical and jazz guitar. And he's got some neat arrangements in there that I think are pretty playable without, insane jazz chord voicings. That might be a good book to check out. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a book by Andrew York. And I think the title has something to do with, classical and jazz. Maybe I'll see if I can find it here. Yeah. It's called The Classical Guitarist's Guide to Jazz. I'll put a link to it here. This is not any kind of affiliate link. I don't get any kickback. I'm just sharing it here because I think it's a cool book. That'd be cool. Hey, Zach is here. Everybody wave to Zach. That's really nice. How you doing? Ian Terry. Oh man, Philip Siebert says thank you from Bavaria in southern Germany. Thank you so much, Philip. Ian Terry from Washington State. I recently started playing with a local big band. Any tips for developing big band comping skills and techniques? Yeah. I mean, first of all, a big thing is in a big band, the charts for guitar are going to have a lot of fancy chord names like A flat 7, flat 13, sharp 9, and all that kind of stuff. just know that you don't have to play all that stuff. If it says A flat 7, sharp 9, flat 13, you could really just play shell voicing, root 7 and 3, and that's fine. Um, yeah. So first thing I'd say is simplify chords. You don't have to play all the notes that they say. Just play, you can even just play triad. That's going to be fine instead of trying to get all of the extensions on everything. Also, like learn some like common sort of passing things like that. Because sometimes you're going to see a chord chart that goes like A flat 6th, B flat minor 6th, B diminished 7th, A flat over C. And if you're just reading that, it might be like, wow, what is all that stuff? And you realize it's just something like that, which is just little moving lines, really. Right? It's really just trying to harmonize something as simple as this, which is a lower down version of something like this. Right? So learn some of those common things that come up over and over again, or stuff called like line cliches, where it's like A minor sharp 5, A minor 6th. That stuff would come up in a big band chart. Try to get a really good sound on the guitar. I'm assuming you're playing electric guitar in the big band, but remember that the history of big band guitar really has to do more to do with acoustic guitars, archtop guitars, unamplified guitars. So try to get a sound out of your guitar that's maybe less pretty and warm than what you would normally like. And just remember that in a big band, the guitar is almost meant to be percussive and driving more than it is like this big, warm jazz guitar sound. Like the Wes Montgomery guitar sound is the greatest jazz guitar sound, but it really wouldn't work in a big band setting because there's so many other people fighting for the same frequency space. Try to get a sound that has more air in it. Caleb says, anybody want to go Alfonso Ponticelli? He plays the Green Mill tonight before the Fretboard Summit on the 20th. I wish I could. I bet that's going to be a great show, Caleb. Oh yeah, that's right. That is the book, Creative Chordal Harmony for Guitar. This is the Mick Goodrick, Tim Miller book. That's a really cool book. What else? Gosh, these office hours go by so quickly. Garrett Nisley says, "Oh, hey Corey Hicks, how you doing?" Garrett says, "Thank you. My gut was telling me to not transcribe so literally, but sometimes my ego wants to take control of my chord voicings, which doesn't really serve the music. I wrote down your book recommendations." Cool. Yeah, really. That's just something that's taken me years to figure out is because I'm a slow learner, like some of you guys will figure it out sooner than I did. But yeah, trying to transcribe anything literally, it can be this beautiful meditative process where you're really just trying to get inside the recording and phrase and it just get everything just the way that somebody else did. But that is a beautiful way to spend your practice time. And you can learn a lot about music. But just remember that then when you go to play music with people, um, you're playing different music at a different time with different people. And, it'd be like if you transcribed a really smart person having a conversation with their really smart friends, and then you just showed up, at a bar on a Friday night and just said all the things that the smart person said at the smart person get together, and you're just, the setting is totally different, and it's not necessarily going to work. And the guitar is just different from the piano. Much as I wish I could play pianistically on the guitar, um, I think most of the time that doesn't sound good to me. I've tried to learn some things that are a little bit like Thelonious Monk. I've tried to learn some things that are a little bit like Randy Newman, the way that he plays the piano, or Alan Toussaint, the way that he plays the piano. Um, but they're different instruments. So just learn what you can and do what you can. But trying to do it literally, I don't think makes sense. Yeah. Hello from Dallas. How much should you practice daily if you want to be a pro musician? I play other instruments as well, and I sing. Seems like a lot of time to devote to each daily. Yeah, Miguel. Oof. Um, I mean, if you're just getting your, stuff together, I think 2 hours would be a good amount of time. It really depends on where you're at on the guitar, and what your goals are, and what professional even means to you. But I think if you want to see progress really happening, then you're looking at 2 hours um, of real practice. And then if you want to then just improvise and play for another half hour, 45 minutes, then that's great too, because you need to take all the hard work and practice and actually stretch out on the guitar. So 2.5 hours a day on the guitar, I think, would be my recommendation. I know that's not possible for everybody. Um, and at this point in my life, it's very, very rare, to be honest, that I spend that much time practicing. Uh, but if you put in the time at some point, then it pays dividends forward. And when I do get back to that kind of practice, I always feel so much better. There's lots of stuff that I just can't do some days because I'm not in the shape of a guitar. I'm not as in shape on the guitar as I would like to be, but there's just lots of other things that need doing. And it sounds like in your case, that could be true too. So it's hard to balance life with music. And even if you are a full-time musician, you know, I put a lot of time into doing things for my musical life that are not guitar practice, and all that stuff is important. Hey, Ian, I'm glad that was helpful. Um, Gosh, I think I should wind it up. Um, Frank says, I had a teacher say in the big band, you may not hear the guitar, but you can feel it. Yeah, that's true. Listen to some Count Basie records. Get an idea of what it's supposed to feel like. Do less, make it feel good. That's the whole thing. Um, Adam Gill. Okay, this is my last question because it's been about an hour. Unless Zach has a question. If Zach has a question, I'm always down to talk with Zach. I'm so glad to see him here. Um, yeah, Adam Gilbert, that's like a big question to hit me with in the last minute of the live stream. But let's see, what would I practice? Okay, I'll answer Zach because that's a good question. When are you coming to Nashville? I don't currently have any plans to come to Nashville, but I'm really hoping to get there in the new year. I was going to try to come out in January to teach a workshop. I had been planning to do something at the Fairfield in the Gulch, but then they they wrote to me to say that they're going to be doing some renovations so that that's not possible there. So I'm still free in January, but I haven't figured out an alternative place to do it. Zach, if you know of a place that I could come and give a 1 day workshop or maybe even a 2 day workshop, I would be super open to ideas. And if I could do that, then I would certainly add on a live show. Um, but yeah, I mostly come to Nashville to teach and sometimes to play. But at the moment, nothing planned. Zach, maybe we can figure out a way to make that happen. So, tunes to play, Adam. That's such a good question, but um, I feel. I hope it doesn't sound funny to say, but I feel underqualified. Like, if you're into Little Wing, that's a great song to practice, and that's exactly that's a great song. But most of my world as a player and as a teacher have to do with jazz, so I'm not even sure, um, what other songs I would say that are like in the Little Wing world of guitar. But man, maybe some other people here would have some good ideas. Um, I I don't play a lot of rock and I don't teach a lot of rock, so I'm not sure like what are the best songs for you to practice. But oh yeah, Eric Haugen. That's the real answer. Watch Eric Haugen because that's he's we are simpatico in terms of the way we think about music, but he's um, much more of a rock and roots and song guy. So that would be what I would do. So yeah, if you're already following him, you're in very good hands. Um, man, I'm gonna sign off here. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Uh, if you like the way that I teach and you're interested in more of what I do, please check out my Patreon channel. It's called Guitar Tips Pro. You can go to patreon.com/guitar tips pro. I know that some of you here in the feed are already there, so I'm preaching to the choir, but um, there's just loads of lessons there, all kinds of deep dives on theory and triads and learning your fretboard and improvising and chords and lots of interviews with great players. Some of the lessons have PDFs or backing tracks. It's been a big part of the work I've been doing for the past 7 or 8 years is building up the library that is my Patreon. So please check it out. And I hope you'll find a bunch of stuff there that will help you continue to grow. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, George. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Guitar Rucci. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Paul, Miguel, Corey, Caleb, Ian, Philip, Sandra, Julio or Julio, David, I think, John Hussein. Thank you, everybody. You guys make these really fun. I'm glad to have time with you and just thank you so much. All right.